We are seeing right here an officer pretty much make a career suicide, calling out what I would say are all the stars, all of the generals out there, as he does the most epic resignation ever. To give some context, this is Colonel Kenneth Bode's resignation letter. He was stationed down in San Antonio. It says, effective date, I hereby resign my command effective immediately 19 July 2022. I have chosen to do so the day prior to the planned change of command ceremony to ensure this organization does not experience any disruption by my effort to bring appropriate attention to the issues described below. The incoming commander is prepared to assume responsibilities and all the appropriate transitions actions have already occurred. I also wish to note that inside the command, many members have and continue to provide outstanding service despite the unforgivable conditions. I cannot sufficiently express my gratitude for their commitment and my opportunity to lead them. To have an 06 completely resign and have no aspirations to continue to command, and it's just so symbolic. It's enough to say he will never do anything leadership-wise again because of this formal letter, but at the same time, it's respectful enough that he did his duties and was not fired. And by the way, thanks to Task and Purpose for getting this together because I could not find it anywhere else. But it says, Joint Base San Antonio and Brooke Army Medical Center, BAMC, suffer from structural and cultural flaws that together create a working environment antithetical to the core values of both the Air Force and Army. My efforts to raise the alarm have fallen on deaf ears for 2 years because no official has adequately addressed or even acknowledged these issues. I cannot continue to serve as a commander and hereby resign. My intent is constructive dissent with the goal of meaningful change. I want to reflect for a second the fact that if you have an 06 that is leading, that is the head of this command, that feels invaluable to make any difference or any change or make anything better or have anything heard and have access to those levels at the general level, what does that mean for the E3? What does that mean for even some senior leadership that are enlisted? You know, I mean, even for me, like sphere of influence, this guy, you would look at him and think he would be able to, make mountains move because he has this level of authority at a command level. He then gives background on his information. He says, in 99, I began my career in the Air Force Academy where the concepts of wingmanship and our Air Force core values are espoused. Thereafter, I live my life by these core beliefs. I appreciate the calling to serve to our nation and hold it in high regard. Accordingly, I forwent my position as an orthopedic spine surgeon to serve as a commander. It was not a decision I made lightly, and I did it to meet the leadership needs of the Air Force. It is a true privilege to serve our beneficiaries and Department of Defense personnel during this my fourth command. Unfortunately, I discovered that my abilities to effectively accomplish my commander's responsibilities of leading people, improving the unit, managing resources, and executing that mission were repeatedly undercut and hampered. Never one to quit or ignore a deficiency. I simultaneously sought to deliver the best possible results in command while simultaneously raising concerns through established channels. I pushed those concerns throughout my time in my command to no avail. Today I am left with this last opportunity to make a difference, which I seize with sincere conviction. Now let's also reflect on this. You're talking about people like Stuart Scheller, which made similar echoes of like accountability at upper levels and being able to voice that through appropriate channels and how that wouldn't be heard. You had Captain Crozier, which was on the Theodore Roosevelt during the COVID-19 outbreak, where he tried to make his voice heard and it seemed like nothing was happening. And now we have this commander here, which is voluntarily just saying, I give up. I also want to annotate, this is a orthopedic spine surgeon, a dude that could have left years ago at this point, most likely, and made a killing. But what did he decide to do? He decides to stay in the Air Force and make it better. And according to him, this is his fourth command. This is not his first rodeo. He is seeing a shift, seeing a change in the culture, and that is worrisome if we are losing people that are to this degree obviously had motivation to do the Air Force Academy and live by these values, but now in 2022 are looking to leave the organization and say, this is not for me. I don't identify with this anymore. He continues to say, concerns. The following issues, well known yet ignored by those with authority to act, are the reason I'm resigning from this command. He says the standard, Title 10, United States Code, Section 9233, requires all commanding officers and others in authority in the Air Force to show in themselves a good example of virtue, honor, patriotism, and subordination, to be vigilant in inspecting the conduct of all persons who are placed under their command, to guard against and suppress all dissolute and immoral practices, and correct according to the laws and regulations of the Air Force all persons who are guilty of them, and to take all necessary proper measures under the laws, regulations, and customs of the Air Force, to promote and safeguard the moral and physical well-being and the general welfare of the officers and enlisted persons under their command of charge. As prior Air Force Chief of Staff General Charles Gabriel stated, integrity is the fundamental premise of military service in a free society. Without integrity, the moral pillars of our military strength, public trust, and self-respect are lost. The standard is not upheld at Joint Base San Antonio, BAMC. What is happening with the junior people, or the people that are junior to him, that are his subordinates, if he feels like they are not being taken care of? I feel like this statement is a little bit vague, and honestly, it doesn't give much context here other than pretty much integrity. And like I mentioned, Stuart Scheller, this seems like a very echoing type of voice that we're seeing in this chamber here. Continues to say that the organizational structure concerns for Joint Base San Antonio and BAMC, the structure of Joint Base San Antonio and BAMC does not allow the Air Force commanders of the 959 MDG to fulfill their roles and responsibilities which reside in Air Force instruction. The commanders and senior enlisted leaders of the Air Force competent within BAMC are excluded from fundamental decision-making process and not co-located even after 10-year presence in this organization. Even the name Brooke Army Medical Center instead of Brooke Military Medical Center highlights the lack of genuine joint operations. The Army's Health Executive Leadership Organization structure, HELOS, is present at BAMC and does not follow our mission command within the Air Force Doctrine publication, or the Air Force Chief of Staff action orders. Instead, this structure creates a situation where all decision-making authority lies with the deputy commanders who do not live by the same standard as G-Series order commanders. This commander's charge provides the legal authority, direction, and control of the command within the Air Force. Tested and proven lines and scopes of authority employed across the rest of the Air Force and in the real joint organizations are absent from BAMC. This faulty foundation has allowed widespread dysfunction, undercutting morale, mission effectiveness, pride, and heritage. What he's talking about here that I can say is like we're moving in the military to this idea that every branch's medical will blend together at one point, whether you're Army, whether you're Air Force, whether you're whatever. And they have these groups at which, you fall under to a certain region and we all help each other versus being, we're Army, we're Navy, we're Air Force, we're whatever. But what he's saying is that with that divide that's still obviously there, not every one of these places is able to make decisions appropriately based on who they should be a part of. And if essentially they're not on the same page, it makes them ineffective. And he's like, we need to fix that so we can actually make appropriate decisions for our patients. He continues to say, while it may be a place of talent and knowledge regarding health, JBSA, it is not fit. The counterproductive toxic leadership described in Army doctrine, and he cites something that kind of says it, but it says not that it's widespread and pervasive, not only tolerated this condition, but buoyed and reinforced within the culture and structure of BAMC. While dignity and respect is a claimed policy, the current Army Air Force structure dynamics do not support this initiative. In fact, it is rife with cronyism, but maneuvering and counterproductive bureaucracy. The caustic environment, the BAMC way of doing business, is an affront to all ideals of the military leadership, particularly the notions espoused in Major General John M. Schofield's 1879 address to West Point grads. And he says this, efforts to bring this to the attention of the AETC commander, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Secretary of the Air Force, and the Department of Defense Inspector General have netted zero results or improvements. Following my formal complaints to the 59th MDW/CC about widespread harassment, defamation, inappropriate behavior, and toxic leadership, a commander-directed investigation was conducted that examined interference with command authority, failure to maintain healthy command climate, abuse of authority, and disrespectful and libel comments. The investigation officer made findings substantiating 5 specific concerns among the 9 IRAs. However, in her capacity as a approving official, the 59th MDW/CC dismissed the IO's findings and substituted findings of her own that unsubstantiated all issues, unilaterally declaring that all was well, even though they held other field grade officers accountable for UCMJ offenses. So all those things, doesn't get into specifics, but says pretty much they did all they were supposed to. They got the investigation. They did that. Check. They got the findings back. Check. The commander knew about them. Check. What do we do about them? Nothing. No check. Because they have found other ways to say that the findings were not legitimate, and they kind of swept this under the rug, and that's why he's feeling powerless. He continues to echo, professional malaise are evident and validate the initial concerns brought to, yet ignored by the entire chain of command. He says, 1. The orthopedics program director resigned due to the culture of BAMC, leading to an Army regulation investigation. This investigation examined complaints of bullying, counterproductive leadership, failure to treat others with dignity and respect, and a hostile work environment. 2, there was a deputy commander for surgical services that transitioned out of leadership and is now retiring. 3, there is a deputy DCSS, which is like another branch of this hospital area. It says orthopedics chair was officially relieved from his leadership positions following findings of an investigation that says it was quotations a failure to treat people with dignity and respect, degrading comments and regulations violations. 4, it says that the group commander resigned due to BAMC and JBSA structure and culture. And 5, it says that there was a separate Army investigation that documented counterproductive leadership and bullying within the Department of Anesthesia. It's crazy because he hasn't even gotten into any specifics other than this happened, this happened, this happened. I would love to see somebody do some kind of Freedom of Information Act on this, because to get these reports, if that's possible, to read what exactly happened, what accusations were being made, and what the actual findings were, we might actually have more substance. But I understand he is trying to be professional in the way that he is doing this. He says the details and examples above only tell part of the story. Like I said, in each instance, leaders throughout the chain of command were aware and did nothing to stop illegal, immoral, and unethical actions, which their responsibility under Title 10. The structure and culture of this area says also helped undercut leaders' ability to address the issues, which remains part of the problem. Real reform and improvements are needed, as noted in the Military Justice Improvement Act initiative, and says there must be accountability. Commanders with real authority are necessary for good order and discipline, maintenance of morale, and mission effectiveness. Otherwise, we fail our airmen. If the environment continues, we will likely see another Walter Reed Army Medical Center 2007 scandal incident. He's giving fair warning, and I think he's jumping ship before any of this happens. He's just saying, listen, the culture here is bad. People are going to make medical errors. We're going to have people that aren't competent. We're going to have people that are degrading of others. And Walter Reed back in 2007 ended up migrating into what it was the National Naval Medical Center as well, whatever they want to call it now. I forget the whole name, but pretty much they slammed those together because Walter Reed was just such a mess. They had to clean their hands of it. I digress, but he does give warning to fellow future commanders trying to take lead. He says, I end with this caution. For those contemplating command positions within the military medical structure, you may want to pause over the system's dysfunction and apathy before committing your talent and time to a STEMI tour. It is no surprise the Air Force colonels receive an email from the CSAF pleading for leaders to take command. Those inclined to answer that call should perhaps ask if their time and medical skills would be better spent in clinical work than wasted in the command time under the system that forecloses accountability and buoys toxicity. Yes, we need committed, engaged commanders, but drove me to take the command. The systemic flaws I encountered and the unwillingness of those with the power to make necessary improvements are what drives me now to resign this command. Meaningful change, both in terms of structure and culture, is needed. Signed, Colonel Kenneth S. Bode. Colonel Bode is dropping the bomb on this entire resignation letter. And I will tell you what he is saying here is His time as a spine surgeon would have been more beneficial than him taking command. He did that selflessly. Like I said, could have made a lot more money most likely if he'd gotten out. And this is where I say it's tough because these military branches are wanting people that are doctors, spine surgeons to be in these administrative commander roles where it's like, they have a lot of knowledge. Why not hire people that are going to actually just run the hospital? Do they sacrifice their personal skills, knowledge, information, and ability to make money later on for this paycheck of being in the military and trying to go up the command structure where they may or may not feel totally effective? What do you think about this situation? Because this is a little bit more structured, a little bit more rigid and professional than someone like Stuart Scheller or Captain Crozier. But let me know down in the comments below what you think about this, and let's move on from there. And if you guys have other topics, videos, whatever else, hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.